Okay, we've made the frame, we've glued our cross members in, and we want to make sure, as best as we can, that it's the same width at the back as the front, within a degree. It doesn't have to be exact, but the closer it is, the easier it's going to work for you. Our next step is we're going to glue the mousetrap onto the frame. To make it easier, this is a Victor mousetrap, and it has the lovely mouse as their logo in the V. We're going to have the V pointing to the front of the car so we can always remember that's the front of the car. Same way we glued the frame rails together, we are simply going to make sure, yes, we're good. We're going to make it so the front of the mousetrap is even with the front frame cross member. So easiest way is we'll just put some glue across each one. You don't have to use tons of it, just enough so you know it's going to hold. Set the mousetrap on and hold it there for just a second. Let the glue cool off. And there we go. Our next step, once the glue is cooled enough that we can handle it, we're going to flip the whole mousetrap frame upside down. And I get our 4 little eye hooks here. Sorry. Our 4 little eye screws, and we're going to work on mounting them at the back of the frame and the front of the frame. Easiest way to accomplish this will be we're going to measure from the front. We're going to come back about 1.25 inches, right here. Sorry, 1.25 inches on both frame rails. Make sure you're measuring properly because this is very important in this step. This is what's going to ensure that your mousetrap car will go straight and without wandering. Measure twice. Measure twice. So here's our spot. There and there. We're going to use this small pokey device, and we're simply going to force it in to the piece of wood. That will give us a little starting area for winding in the small eye hooks we're going to install. It's just easier to have a little starting point of some sort. Take each eye hook, get them started, and try and go in as straight as possible. You don't want them to be crooked, and you also need to wind them in so they're both in the equal distance. You might find it easier once you reach a point to use your little metal axle as a wrench. We're going to turn that in. And make sure that they are even with the frame, parallel with the frame. It's important to take your time with this step, for if they're not even and straight, the mousetrap car will not be aligned and will not travel straight down the race course. This is also how you can make alignment changes, so if the mousetrap car goes either left or right, you can make minor adjustments to the height of the screws. Oh, this one's a little bit crooked, that's okay. You can compensate for that a little bit later. Those are the 2 in the front. For the ones in the back, we have to make sure we have our axle mounted ahead of this cross member. We need to have the axle clear over top so we can unwind the string. So we're going to go in approximately 1.5 inches on these ones. Yep, 1.5 inches looks pretty good. 1.5 inches from the edge, and 1.5 inches from the edge. Make our mark, make our mark. And it's the same idea with the back ones. We're going to use our little poking tool. You can use a nail or a screw, just something to make it easier for you to get the eye screw started. A little wiggle and a push. A wiggle and a push. And it's the same idea again. It's a little tricky to get them started, but once they're started, they'll follow themselves in. And once again, we can use the metal axle as a tool and screw those in. Parallel to the frame. That one's in crooked. Once again, we can correct any mistakes in alignment by adjusting these screws. If you use the threads as a reference, you'll be able to know if you have them in equally or not, or you can always just measure. Looks pretty good.